Cool. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our next Ask Me Anything session on leadership in DevOps. Had a slight technical issue there where we've lost our host just before the session begins, which isn't ideal, but we'll pull it on. So today I'm joined by Samar, Ryan, and Mark, who are all leaders in our ECS team. And we're going to be taking your questions on anything to do with leadership and DevOps. So this is the second or third session within our Ask Me Anything series. So we're glad that you've joined us today, and we've got another 3 coming up in the future, which I'll tell you more about at the end of this session. So first of all, I'd like to allow the panel to introduce themselves. So Samar, can we start with you? If you'd like to tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Yes. So good afternoon. I started off, I completed my degree in computer science, stepped right into QA right after the degree. It's been 12 years since I've been in the realms of QA. Started off with automation in C. Now I've been learning C# and Java. Worked in different sectors in those 12 years. But ECS was my first consultancy. It made me actually fall in love with this consultancy sector. And I've actually found my strengths being in this place. So yeah, don't want to look back. So I want to stay in this consultancy area. Currently, I'm in BP as a test lead.
Hey guys, sorry about that.
No worries. So I've just introduced myself. Back to you, Greg.
Perfect. So there's always a technical glitch, isn't there? So welcome everyone today to ECS's next Ask Me Anything session. It's the second of 5 sessions that we got. And today we'll be covering the subject of DevOps, leadership in DevOps. I'm Greg Lynch. I'll be your host for the panel discussion. Before I introduce the lovely panel, I'll give you a bit of context around DevOps and some of the questions we might be covering today. So in today's software-driven world, we're seeing organizations are eager to take advantage of several areas such as faster application delivery, enhanced innovation, and more stable operating environments. But still, we're faced with some of the same questions that we were faced from the very inception of DevOps. So what does a good DevOps operating model look like? What roles does leadership have to play within this? And how do we navigate the pitfalls of early adoption? So over the next 45 minutes, my lovely panel, we're hoping to be on. Please do get involved by submitting your questions into the comments section on the YouTube channel. I'll try my very best to get around them all and direct them to the panel. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to the guys to introduce themselves and we'll jump into the questions.
Yeah, I'm happy to go next. Thanks, Summer, for that insight into your past and present. I come from an operations background. Years ago, I started out as a system engineer, did MCSE 2000. Yeah, sort of showing my age there. But past that, went straight into sort of IT administration roles. And when I spent over a decade as a fund manager here in the city, was fortunate enough to go through 2 or 3 transformations that they did as they were acquired and moved on. And from there, I came to ECS, been here for 2 years. I myself also like the consultancy gig, I must admit. Getting an opportunity to speak to various customers in various different sectors to share my experiences and through transformation. That's pretty much where I, like to also see some of my strengths come through. For me, currently, for the last year, I've actually been at HSBC. Fortunate enough to go through their transformation project. They've got a really interesting take on where they want to head and how they want to do that. That's coming to an end, unfortunately. But we pretty soon, I'm sure we'll be back in there or doing some more pieces of work for them, because they've got a wealth of opportunity there. So yeah, over to you, Greg.
Perfect. Thanks for that, Ryan. Mark, do you want to give a quick brief summary of your experience, and then we'll jump into the questions?
Yeah, sure. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Capaldi. I'm the practice lead for the ECS digital team in Edinburgh. I've been with the company for almost 18 months now. And prior to that, I was a contractor for almost 20 years. And like Ryan, I've got an extensive background in financial services. I come predominantly from a software development background. So it's been a really interesting 18 months learning about DevOps and leading a team responsible for DevOps practices in financial services. So yeah, that's me.
Perfect. Thanks for that, guys. So I'm going to start you off with an easy one whilst we wait for our audience to warm up. So first off is, what was it that made you get into a leadership role within the DevOps space?
I think for me, in all honesty, I kind of fell into it, if I'm very honest. Having worked with a whole variety of teams and people over the years, I have gained a sort of insight into the types of people that work well in teams, as well as the needs of the actual team members. So for me, it seemed like a natural progression to go into that role. And it's something I enjoy, to be honest. It's something I've always favored, as opposed to some of the other types of roles that happen within the team. So for me, I enjoy that side of it. But that's kind of how I landed up in that role. Yeah.
And for myself, I think I just wanted to have more impact on a product and have more control. I just wanted to see the end-to-end product destiny and have more control over that. Also, the other side was mentoring and also helping other people grow as well. So it sort was the right time. I thought that when I joined ECS, I thought it was the right time for me to now step up and be in that position. So I think I found that strength in me when I joined ECS, and I thought it was the right time.
Perfect.
For me, I think it's two things. It's about technology and people. I think once you get to a certain level of experience with the technology, you realise that you can't do everything on your own, and you need to be part of a bigger team. And for me, the biggest thing is the reward of seeing people come together and achieve something that wouldn't be possible on their own. I think any parents or teachers out there will appreciate the joys and rewards you see from teaching your children or your students how to do something, and it's equally rewarding being part of a team and seeing them achieve something that wouldn't be possible on their own.
Really interesting point, actually. So you've prompted my memory to a customer of mine, and I think it allies itself to some of your replies there. But do you feel like you're growth that we're seeing within enterprise environments? So there's this real big push to do DevOps in some capacity. How important is it for these enterprises to kind of empower their people and get the right sort of makeup within their sort of teams?
I think it's becoming more and more important, and I think companies are starting to realise that a change in attitude and a change of approach will actually benefit them hugely. I'm old enough to remember and be involved in several projects that it could be described as command and control. You weren't necessarily involved in the decision-making process. You weren't given a mandate to provide expertise. And I think that's changed now, and technology in particular in our industry has led to that sort of change, where everybody is recognised as having a contribution to make, and everybody's given a voice, and everybody's listened to. And I think, you know, in terms of value to the enterprise, it's orders of magnitude more beneficial for them, as well as being more engaging for individual members of the team.
Yeah, no, I must sort of second that as well. To be honest, from what I've experienced and from what I'm seeing in the last couple of years, there's definitely a big drive from the sort of the senior management, the trickling down effect, the drive to get skills and sort of things. People change from their sort of traditional team structures to be more sort of take on the more agile approach, be more open, more in tune with you know, the tools that are being used throughout the organization, and for ultimately everyone to contribute. I think senior leaders are of customers and sort of, you know, institutions are they recognize that they sort of have to go that way, and to remain competitive ultimately.
And I think it's extremely, you can introduce new tools. I think it's easier, but the most difficult part in this whole process is changing people's behavior, that culture, that attitude. I think that's the most difficult part in this whole DevOps process. And I think that's what we deal with whenever we are put in a team as well, or in a process, that it's changing that mindset of people to adopt that new way of thinking.
Really interesting point around changing behaviors. What have you guys seen work best? Not necessarily from day-to-day sort of practices, but sort of what kind of methodologies have you seen work best to kind of change behaviors of a kind of delivery team?
I think it's just you keep teaching, you keep hitting that wall constantly, and not give up. So that's the only way, or at putting your point forward with logic, reasons, telling them that making that change, what would the output you'll achieve, convincing your clients. I think that's what I've found works.
I think also what is another big driver behind that is buy-in from managers and senior managers of a firm. It's really, I mean, it's one of the biggest challenges. If you're trying to deliver something against a company's corporate culture, it's destined to be very difficult. So you definitely need that sort of top-down approach, buy-in, that will to change, that drive to make things different, and that it sort of contributes to all of that. Yeah.
I think what I've seen as a useful technique, if you like, is to teach not just individuals but companies the power of failure, and how it's not only safe to learn, but it's safe to fail, but it's such a powerful way to learn, and it really increases the rate of growth within companies and teams, and that's something that I try and encourage with teams that I work with.
Yeah, that fail fast attitude's definitely something I've seen benefit many customers as well. So it looks like we've done a good job of warming up the audience. There's a few questions flying in, and it's actually a good segue from the points that we've made. So I really like this question. There's a lot of evidence around the benefits of diversity in leadership, but the tech industry seems to be lagging. How can businesses look to bring more diversity into their leadership teams? And I guess probably to caveat that what role does DevOps have to play within that?
So yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I was just going to say, it's obviously very topical and something that we're reflecting on as a company at the moment, but I think we have a responsibility to get involved in the community and to, my background is I'm self-taught, and I noticed, Samar, when you were introducing yourself, you mentioned your degree, and I think it's interesting to reflect on those differences in backgrounds. I think if there's any industry at the moment where it's possible to break into without a formal education, I think it's tech. And I think I actually feel quite lucky to be alive in this time, because I'm old enough to remember when PCs and the internet weren't a thing. So I've been able to observe the change and opportunities for people. It's now possible to learn anything. You've got a wealth, a global wealth of knowledge available to you, and you can teach yourself. So I think as an organisation, we should be looking at supporting that activity and making sure that channels are open for people and they recognise that those opportunities are there.
I think sometimes it's the underrepresented people. So sometimes they might need a push from within the organization. They might need help to just come to the table and get themselves visible. So it's I think the responsibility is on the organizations to create such an environment that they that helps them grow, and so the big word is psychological security, and I think that's one of the major factors that keeps people behind. So if you provide that sort of an environment where people are not afraid to say their opinion, I think that would really create that push for bringing diversity into leadership as well. And it's the responsibility of the person that goes above to actually reach out to the person down with the same sort of in the realm of the same diversity to help them come up. So as a woman, I think it is my responsibility to an extent that I help other and give them a role model that it can. So once they see that somebody like them is at that top level, they will see that they can reach that place as well. Like there was a research in India, there was a village that people who see women leaders, men who see like at least 2 women leaders, they are more likely to vote for those leaders. So it's basically that you show that that is achievable, then it seems that yes, you can reach it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more with the creating the opportunities and getting involved in local and maybe even a larger scale to encourage people to come to those environments that you've mentioned, Soma. Yeah, I think that is absolutely, the right way to go forward. That, making people feel comfortable that the environment that they're in is one that they can excel in. And yeah, Mark, I couldn't agree more. Being, the opportunities to do self-learning and sort of take on a completely new side of an industry. A lot of the information out there is free these days. So if you have the time and the drive, you can definitely break into it. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And Simon, I think your point's really good, and it's something that I see time and time again about people not really seeing what is possible. We maybe tend to have a self-limiting mindset sometimes. And when you see role models, or even in DevOps, when you see what is possible with the technology and how far we can automate things, and constantly trying to push teams to think about what else could we do, how far could we take this, and challenge this sort of traditional fixed mindset, if you like. And I think there are parallels there that if we can show people and teach them that there are opportunities there for them, and they should strive to take advantage of those opportunities and give them the support they need to be able to do so.
And I think we've come quite far. So I remember when I was doing my degree, there was only 16 people, 16 women in that, so there was very less, the representation was quite less. But now I see that it's a very changed world.
Yeah, the thing not just DevOps, but just generically modern working practices, the thing that I love seeing within sort of customer environments is just the democratization of tasks. We're no longer in a world where you're siloed to a domain. It's very much that, we are driven to an outcome for the business and we're all a part of that. So I guess the next question is, does leadership rest solely on one person, or should a DevOps team share the burden through delivery, and how does that reflect through leadership?
So I don't think leadership rests with one person. I think it's everybody's responsibility. I really believe in, as I mentioned earlier, empowering individuals, empowering the team, for everybody's voice to be heard. And I think, you mentioned the word democratization, Greg. It's something we're seeing more of. And again, I referred to command and control earlier, but we're definitely moving away from that. Everybody's got a voice, everybody's got a contribution to make. And I think that's the big difference that I'm seeing, and it's really powerful.
Yeah, no, again, it's exactly that. I think the leadership, there's many different facets to leadership, and everyone can take on a small piece of that mantle, and sort of it's only going to help the individual in the future, where later on they will morph into a leadership role of their own. But yeah, it is kind of the responsibility of everyone, sort of take it on board, and it's going to sort of enable and sort of encourage that collaboration more and allow everyone's voice to shine.
I think it depends what the definition of leadership is, actually. It all depends on that. So yes, everybody should be a leader. So what should be the qualities of a leader? The main thing is having that trust, empathy, having people follow you, mentoring. So these are the things, and you don't have to be designated as a leader to be a leader. So a company doesn't have to say, okay, no, you don't have to have that. Everybody can be a leader within themselves. And if in team you have these leadership qualities in everyone, you make a very successful team then, because you have that empathy and you have the caring nature within. How many times has it been that you stay back to help somebody, your colleague, who's stuck at some work thing? So that's sort of an attitude that that builds this leadership quality, and then that person takes that quality in another team, and so it sort of like grows in an organization.
And you mentioned mentoring there, Samar. I mean, that's something that I felt was lacking in my early career, was somebody to look up to and learn from. And I think that it is very powerful. It is a form of leadership, but it is very, very powerful. And it's something that I think we should be paying more attention to in the industry as a whole.
Yeah, good point. I'm going to move on to the next question. So it wouldn't be a lockdown summer session without reference to COVID. So what do you think the future of DevOps is post-COVID? I think I'll probably flip that on the head and say, what opportunity does DevOps bring post-COVID? Because I think there's plenty. So I'm going to flip that question to you guys now.
So we have to talk about remote working.
Yeah.
And, I'm a big fan of co-located teams, face-to-face communication. high value conversations, all that sort of stuff. So this period's been particularly challenging for me, but it's been really encouraging to see how the teams have come together and worked really hard to make sure that that communication is really not suffering as a result of not being in the same workplace. So I think our attitude to remote working may change in the months and years to come. I think it feels like a tipping point for remote working, and you know, back to the question about diversity, that opens up opportunities for people who, you know, aren't in the cities and the big hubs where the majority of work is. Does it open up opportunities for people who are living more rurally or you know, in other countries? So yeah, I think it's going to make a huge difference to the industry, a huge difference to the way that we work, and hopefully we can do that with no impact to the quality of the work. And I think that's the important thing, is tying the two things together.
I completely echo that, Mark. That yes, I like face-to-face communication, but yes, you have to find new ways of building that that link with your team, basically. So we've come up with strategies. How many? There's one that, you know, you just have the video on. You don't have to talk, but you just have it on.
Yeah.
So you have the feeling that you're still working in the same room together. So there are different ways, and it's amazing that, you know, how many ideas have come out with this, you know, remote working, and successful delivery of work as well. So I think the future is quite bright.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I mean, we've seen even, you know, if we look at it from a customer perspective, we've seen the uptake of, particularly in video, it's been a really, really good success. It's to an extent where everyone was able to work remote full time, even prior to the lockdown. That's something that, you know, is easily mastered. I think it may have seemed challenging before, but I think it's, if anything, COVID has taught us that, you know, it's truly possible. And yeah, as you were saying, there are loads of little innovative ways that we've kept people engaged and the morale high. And you know, I can think of many first-hand examples where the pod lead has, you know, excelled and really, you know, kept things alive and, you know, kept it going. But and if I think of opportunities, I think it opens up the door for even new types of roles, to be honest, within pods and teams and companies for themselves. You know, managers could morph into more relationship managers within their own teams if things are done remotely on a permanent basis. You know, if we think about people's well-being and other aspects of their life, it might become or even more encompassing. So I think there's a tremendous opportunity from both an internal team side as well as a customer side.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely seeing a lot of the conversations with my customers focused around our ability to react. So if they didn't already have a digital footprint, they're now looking to have one foot into the sort of digital world, whatever that might mean for them as an organization. And that ability to innovate as well, to kind of spark an idea and just experiment. I think a lot of companies will look now to kind of build a culture of innovation, so they're better placed to react to things like not necessarily COVID, but marketplace conditions. So I definitely think that the idea of DevOps has a long and bright future ahead beyond COVID. So that's good. I'm going to move on to another question, guys. So we talked a lot about culture and progression and opportunity. It'd be good to talk about some examples of where you've seen a DevOps team work and the benefits that that's produced, not just for the team, but also the environment that they're within. So I'll hand that over to you guys.
Mm. Mm. I think this actually goes back to a point we sort of kind of covered a little bit earlier about sort of team engagement, really. I think that's really been one of the big wins that I've really noticed. And I'm keen to sort of move that type of thing forward, from the really, really small things to some of the larger scale things. I think that's definitely something that we should drive home a little bit more in that sense.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we maybe still suffer a little bit with DevOps being a siloed activity, and you know, people assuming that it's something that operates on its own, when you know the opposite is actually true. That the DevOps culture is just as important, if not more important, than the tools or technologies. And I think the benefits of getting that right, having DevOps ingrained as part of your software delivery lifecycle, really allows people to walk away at the end of the day. You know, if you've got continuous delivery, for example, set up properly, and you're regularly shipping code into production, you know, seeing that on a personal level with people within the team taking that sense of pride and that feeling of being rewarded for all their efforts is really one of the most satisfying things, I think. And that's where, you know, for me, I think technology plays into the personal aspects of enjoying your work and getting satisfaction from it.
Yeah, I'd certainly echo that that point around DevOps almost being a siloed initiative in itself, and also reinforce it through this concept that it's a silver bullet as well. I've always seen it as you know, a set of activities that can augment the success of an organization. It's not something that's going to fix all your problems by any means, but your ability to make change definitely improves tenfold, 20-fold if you get it right. And I think it's, for me, that's where leadership is so important, not just within that DevOps team, but from an executive level to make the initiative work, and to kind of remove those legacy barriers that can often get in the way. So if you were day one to start a DevOps initiative, what would your advice be to some of the guys on the channel? What are the main pitfalls that you would advise or highlight if you were to start a DevOps initiative today?
I think for me, day one on starting something today, have a clear idea of the strategy that the project is trying to achieve. Too often, particularly in larger organizations where there are many teams trying to do something like DevOps, a transformation of their own within a transformation, it's all too easy to lose sight of the overall strategy, because that influences your design and the way you approach some of your initiatives or solutions. So I think for me, day one is get a clear indication of what the strategy is going to be for the outcome, and you know, where does the customer want to be at the end of this.
It's understanding what the business actually wants. What is the stakeholder actually, what's the end product that you need to achieve, and then and have every process ready from the start. Like, you need to have, testing shouldn't be coming right at the end. So things need to be in place right at the start. Your drawing board needs to be clear cut. So having everything in place right at the start makes a huge difference.
And I think one of the best ways to do that, I always talk about this silver thread. So, you know, you maybe have a CI or a CD pipeline built that is actually delivering very little, but it's working end to end. So you have the automated tests in place, you have the build process in place, you have the deployment process in place, you have, you know, the infrastructure being deployed. and then you can use that as a platform to build upon, and that sort of maintains the focus on, as we talked about earlier, what is actually possible and what are you trying to achieve through your use of DevOps, rather than if you wait until you've got all the answers and try and build it all first before you start thinking about deployment or testing or all those downstream activities, as it were. You won't get the full benefit of DevOps.
Yeah, I agree. For me, it's definitely an opportunity to rip up the legacy rulebook. I've been privy to a number of initiatives where you're met with opposition and the dreaded words, we can't because we've always done it this way. You've got to go to this board approval. You've got to go through this approval. And it's the antithesis of modern working practices. So for me, I would definitely implore any customer to take the opportunity to redefine those processes, and really encourage the team to develop one that's going to work for them and the product that they're delivering. So yeah, really good points all around, guys. On that note, we've got another COVID question, but it is centered around tools and processes. So have you seen any DevOps tools or processes put in place as a result of COVID? I think we probably should caveat that to a wider piece. Have you seen tools and processes put in as a result of an initiative or an organization's process or sort of direction of travel?
So I think remote working is obviously the key thing that maybe caught many organizations by surprise, and it's maybe not purely DevOps related, but I think organizations are starting to realize the power of not only remote working, but software as a service, for example, cloud-based solutions, infrastructure, as a service, all those sort of things that are really have come out of the DevOps space, are now maybe being reassessed as a result of the COVID situation and the fact that people are working remotely. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think all these things were already in place, but people have understood the importance of it now after remote working, that how important it is. So it's being reassessed by companies, and they're adopting to it. So that culture change is happening actually now once they've realized that, yes, it is needed. And the dinosaur thinking is moving forward now.
Yeah. I mean, again, I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of companies did have these things in place. I agree. I think that there's one example that I sort of caught wind of a couple of days ago, really, and it's about how to do with COVID-19, the delivery of people's laptops for remote working, whereas it was all done manually before with the background of some sort of automated system in the background. Where they've quickly had to scale that up to be fully automated, it got them to a point in a very short space of time where they could deliver 25,000 laptops in the space of the months that we've been at home. So it can be done. It was always there. It's just leveraging off it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think COVID has probably been the most compelling moment of the decade, really, hasn't it? And we alluded to it before. If a company didn't already have a digital footprint, they've definitely spent the last 12 weeks establishing one, and kind of relating it to some of the conversations I've had with the guys at AWS and sort of Microsoft. That there's definitely been a lot more priority on why we're using platforms and tool sets, and what's the value that's going to deliver through the lens of the program of work. So yeah, I definitely think organizations are getting a bit more savvy around that, and really focusing on the why. Why do we need to move things to the cloud? What benefit does DevOps have to us, and what benefit does giving a greater deal of autonomy to our workforce have for us? We've gone from, I was on a webinar with a number of CEOs ranging from TSB Bank to EDF. it was all very hypothetical before COVID. We had things in place, but we weren't actually sure remote working would work, for instance, or stress testing a VPN to the point where everyone's working from home. We weren't sure if that actually would work. And we've gone from the point of hypothetical science to factual science now. And that's quite an exciting point for me. I think I'm really interested to see the kind of benefits to the workforce as a consequence. So we're coming up towards the end of our time today, guys. But I want to kind of ask last question to the panel. So if you could give one bit of advice to future leaders, what would it be?
Be patient. Yeah, I think patience, that phrase, patience is a virtue. Yeah. It's we deal a lot with people, very diverse set of people, diverse set of customers. And it's definitely a skill and a quality that is really going to help people in the future. So I'm going to go with patience here.
I think for me, I don't know if you've heard of it, it's very famous that the best leader or manager is the one that makes himself, herself redundant. So give that opportunity. And then it's a conveyor belt, then it should happen to that, everybody should be moving forward. So be selfless, create that trust. Don't have silo approach in your team. So I think these are major, advice that I would give.
For me, it would be, well, there's so many things, right? It's difficult to pick just one, but I think self-awareness, the ability to reflect on your own performance and how you come across to people. It's certainly something that I've learned a lot about over the last 18 months. And show humility. As I said at the very beginning, the power of failure is crucial. And that extends to a leader just as it does everybody else. So if you can admit when you're wrong, I think, it helps. As Samar said earlier on, trust is important, and it's important to build trust. So if you can show that you're willing to accept that you've made a mistake, then I think that goes some way towards helping build that trust.
Yeah, all really valuable points. And I definitely would echo all of them. I think the best people that I've worked for have put me before. And I think that's reflected in the kind of true ethos of DevOps. So thanks for that, guys. Thanks for your time. I hope we've provided some insight into the DevOps subject and leadership in DevOps. But thanks for joining us today. Just a quick reminder that we will continue the summer sessions every Friday at 12. Next week, we'll be focusing on Agile, followed by containers and QA in DevOps. So hopefully see you all then, and enjoy the weekend.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Cheers.